Hello and welcome back to my F1 diaries. We've had a pretty exciting weekend, so let's discuss the Spanish Grand Prix. So Spain is the start of a triple header along with Austria and Silverstone, which are probably my top 3 circuits in the calendar, mostly because I'm really good at those circuits in the game and it's really fun to drive there. So another update on my gaming skills. I was extra excited for this weekend because Joe from Motorsports Diaries was going to the race. I'm so excited for her. Okay, if you don't know, Joe is an F1 content creator, mostly on TikTok, but she also has a Twitch and like an Instagram and probably a Twitter, but I'm not sure about that. And she got to go to the race with Maria Bonvoy and got to do like stuff with Mercedes and George Russell, which are like, Mercedes are her favorite team and George Russell is her favorite driver. So I was so excited for her like the whole time. Like, you know how F1 sometimes gets influencers into the paddock just because they have a lot of followers and like they don't have anything to do with F1 or take any interest in it. Joe is the exact opposite. Not that she doesn't have a lot of followers, she does, but she's actually like into F1. She's an F1 content creator. Her content is persistent, it's funny, it's informative, and she's super welcoming and super nice and relatable. So this is so deserved for her like to finally get a chance to be in like an official F1 space. So like the whole weekend I was really excited for her and for her content, which was great throughout the whole weekend. And I'm waiting for like official content from her to drop as well. And by the way, if we're already on the topic of F1 content creators alike, there is a Twitter account called Did Oscar Score Points in F1 Today? She's super positive and supportive of Oscar. She gives like updates about him off track and on track with like radio messages and pit stop updates, overtakes and whatnot. And she's definitely a beacon of hope in the hellhole that is F1 Twitter. So I highly recommend those two if you're somehow watching this and don't know who they are. Go follow them. They're really sweet and kind and cute and nice and great. So Spain is supposed to give us a pretty clear picture of where's everyone standing in terms of performance, because it's like a classic track with all types of corners, 2 long straights and elevation changes. So everything from everything. It's the exact opposite of an outlier track like Monaco, for example, which we've had quite a few up until now. F1 teams also test here all the time, so this should be like the most telling race about where everybody's standing. And we'll get to that picture later on. Before we get to F1, I also watched F2 this weekend. Always fun. I always forget to say this, but they have like a previously on Formula 2 and it's hilarious. I love that so much. I kind of wish we had it in F1 as well. So anyways, the sprint and the race both were pretty disappointing and worrying even for Prema, specifically for Ollie, but also for Kimi, which is kind of crazy because those are the 2 F2 drivers who have rumors, or not even rumors, pretty much guaranteed to be in F1 next year, like Ollie to Haas and Kimi to Mercedes, which by the way, I don't think he's ready. Promoting Kimi to F1 next year, I think is a huge mistake and will lead to another Logan Sargent situation. Unfortunately, they also like changed the rules again to like now allow again drivers under 18 to get into F1. So like, okay, before Max Verstappen, drivers under 18 could get into F1 because like that's what happened to Max Verstappen, and then they changed that rule to like only 18 and above because of Max Verstappen, because he was like a menace in his early days, to say the least. And they wanted to prevent another situation like that. And now Kimi Antonelli, who is supposedly the next Max Verstappen, they changed it again to like allow a 17-year-old to get into F1, which, by the way, next year Kimi is gonna be 18. That's not like the issue, but it just allows him to get into F1 this year as well. Like that's kind of crazy, but I don't know. I really hope he's gonna be okay, because like he is clearly very talented. I just don't want him to be like too rushed into it or like too pressured, because it kind of seems like all eyes are on him even now in F2, and I kind of feel kind of a bit sad for him, honestly. So that's about the F2 weekend. We've had some exciting fights both in the sprint and in the race, so that was cool and exciting as always. And now moving on to F1, I didn't watch the free practices because I had other things to do, and like watching them later is pretty much a nightmare because nothing really happens. It feels really useless and boring, so I just watched like the highlights. So moving on to quali, very close between everyone throughout pretty much the whole thing, but mostly in those last minutes of Q3. And Lando got pole from Max, who by the way attempted a toe and that didn't work, so extra impressive for McLaren and Lando. But then on the other hand, Oscar didn't get a time in because I'm pretty sure both of his laps were deleted for track limits. So that's sad. So he was supposed to be P10, but Perez got a 3-grid penalty from Canada for his like reckless driving back to the pit with his broken rear wing in Red Bull's attempt to not get a safety car. So that bumped Oscar to P9. And both Alpines out-qualified both Aston Martins. What is happening? What is going on? We'll talk about Alpine a bit later, but going into the race, there was chances of rain, which never came, but that's fine because we had a very exciting race regardless. A lot of overtakes and like good battles on track throughout pretty much the whole field. A lot of strategy and another missed opportunity for Lando to win. But okay, let's start with the start that screwed him over. So Lando tries to cover off Max and pushes him a bit to the grass. Meanwhile, George gets a crazy slipstream, overtakes both of them into turn 1, and also Max gets in front of Lando, and George leads the Grand Prix, which at that point I was so excited for Joe, just like knowing how she was probably so excited. But that didn't last very long because Max got the lead back at I think lap 2, and then McLaren attempted an overcut, which I really doubted at first. I was very skeptical that it would work because the undercut is supposedly very powerful here, but it definitely did work. And if not for the bad start that we just talked about, he probably would have won the race, but we'll get to that a bit later. Middle of the race, we had again a few really good, beautiful fights on track. We've had a few penalties, one for Magnussen for a false start and one for Yuki for spitting in the pit lane, which makes sense when that's a penalty. I thought it was just like a fine or something like that, but whatever. Yuki was not having a good race either way, so none of that changed anything in the points. We also had pretty bad pit stops throughout the whole thing from like pretty much everyone, but specifically McLaren. I don't think we got under 3 seconds today, which is worrying, I would say. Gasly also had a very bad pit stop, and Russell also had a slow pit stop, like a 5 point something pit stop. And then on the other hand, of course, Max got a 1.9. So whatever, I really hope they sort that out. A lot of drivers, like this was a 2-stopper, and the main strategy was, or like the preferred strategy according to Pirelli, was soft, medium, soft. But a lot of drivers went soft, medium, hards, or just like use the hards, which all signs pointed that it wasn't a good race tire, which it really wasn't. So I have no idea what compelled a lot of them to do that, but okay, I'm not a strategist. And after a lot of hope and a lot of pushing, Max won by just over 2 seconds to Lando. And from what the commentators said, the time Lando lost behind George at the start was the gap he had to Max at one point, like a few laps to the end. So yeah, that start, it cost us another Lando win. And Lando is so disappointed. He looks so sad. Oh my god. He didn't even do like his champagne pop on the podium, which like honestly made me really sad. But like the car was definitely there, even though Oscar was struggling with it the whole weekend. For Lando, the car was there and he knows that, and I think his attitude about P2 just goes to show how McLaren is confident about their ability to win. So at least that's a positive and something that I could hold on to. There was also some drama between the Ferrari boys with an attempt to overtake that resulted in contact between the two that also like continued after the race. There was also some conspiracy about sabotaging Lewis Hamilton's car. I honestly wasn't tuned in for that this weekend, so I have no idea what was actually going on, like who sent it to who, what was going on. But Lewis' car was not sabotaged, at least this weekend, because he got P3. So actually I don't know if that makes it more suspicious that his car was good this weekend, but whatever. I honestly don't know. So here's the picture that I at least saw, or how I interpret it from this weekend. Red Bull and McLaren are pretty much on the same level, and it might even be that McLaren has a better car, but it's just Max that is the perfect driver who doesn't do mistakes. And that's like the tiny difference between the performance of the two, because as much as Lando is a good driver, he makes mistakes. And I think the battle between Max and Lando is gonna be a good one, because Lando, by the way, is P2 in the Drivers' Championship, which is his first time ever doing that. And I know he said he doesn't care like what position he is in, it's just the gap to P1 that he cares about, but that's still very exciting. And I'm not saying Lando can win the championship this year, because Max got it. It's been his since Bahrain, but maybe next year. But the constructors, I think there might be a chance. I think there might be a chance for the constructors this year for McLaren, and I hope there's a chance, because I don't think Max can carry the team alone like he did last year against McLaren, and maybe even Ferrari and Mercedes, but I don't think so. So moving on to Ferrari and Mercedes, I think Ferrari took a tiny step backwards while Mercedes took a huge step forwards, and they're pretty much even right now, and the battle is gonna be between those two. Alpine, surprisingly, I don't know how they improved massively. I don't know like about upgrades. Probably they did have upgrades, because like I don't know how you go from what they've done like in the beginning of the year to this without them, but they're pretty much at the same spot they were last year, like dead average in the middle, or slightly better than average, because like they're P5 currently in like my head, not points wise, but in their potential they're P5, so I don't know where that came from. And it's even weirder that right behind them is Sauber, Haas, and Aston Martin, who all seem to be on the same level, which is so strange to think about and say, because Aston Martin this stage of last year were P2 in the constructors. What the fuck happened? I don't know what they did to that car, but it's not looking good. Even Fernando Alonso can't do anything with it. So VCarb had upgrades, which seem more like downgrades, and Williams are dead last, but everyone is very close. It feels like we're going into every weekend from now on not knowing who is gonna win, which is so fun and exciting. And not only it is more entertaining for us, it seems to be more enjoyable for the drivers as well, because like you can see how happier Max is when he actually needs to work to win and fight to get his wins, as opposed to the ones where he wins by 20 seconds. So the competitiveness levels are very high, and it's better for everyone all around, and I am thrilled for the rest of the season. And this is it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy these memes. Bye.